future proponent for victims of injustice and tyranny during the years prior to the French Revolution. Voltaire, born François-Marie Arouet on November 21, 1694, in Paris, was educated in Paris by the Jesuits. For a time he studied law, then decided to become a writer. Witty, thought-provoking and socially critical, his unique writings inspired France's common people but angered the royalty. In 1717 he was imprisoned in the Bastille for 11 months for ridiculing Duc d'Orléans. While in prison he rewrote his tragedy, Oedipe, which upon its publication brought the young author and philosopher enormous fame and ominous notoriety. In 1726 he was forced to go into exile in England. There he became fascinated with the plays of William Shakespeare, and while shocked by their barbaric nature, calling Shakespeare a drunken savage, he was deeply affected by their genius, energy and human drama. He felt that France had much to learn from England's literature. 3 years later he returned to France, writing plays and poetry as well as historical and scientific treatises. His brilliant 1734 Lettres philosophiques was published. Scandal followed this work, which harshly criticized the religious and political institutions. A warrant for his arrest was issued in 1734, and he fled, taking refuge at Cirey in Champagne in the home of Gabrielle Emilie Le Tonnelier de Breteuil Marquise du Châtelet, the 28-year-old wife of the Marquis Florent du Châtelet. Here he began his professional liaison with the young, intelligent woman. Gabrielle worked with him on many philosophical and scientific topics. Her one major work was a translation of Isaac Newton's Principia. Voltaire lived with her in the chateau he had renovated at his own expense. After 15 years as his guide and supporter, tragedy struck when Gabrielle died in childbirth on September 10, 1749. The baby was the presumed child of her lover, poet Jean-François de Saint-Lambert. Her husband, Voltaire, and Saint-Lambert were present at her deathbed. Voltaire was overwhelmed with grief, often waking in the middle of the night calling her name. He eventually regained favor at the French court and was appointed its royal historiographer. In 1755 he was living near Geneva, Switzerland, and wrote his most famous work, the satirical Candide, in 1759. He later produced many anti-religious writings and his 1764 Dictionnaire philosophique. His fame became worldwide. He was called innkeeper of Europe, and he entertained chic philosophers of the day and such literary figures as James Boswell, Giovanni Casanova, and Edward Gibbon. Always impassioned about injustice, he took a keen interest in the case of Jean Calas, whose innocence he helped to establish. In 1761 Calas was accused, on trivial evidence, of murdering his eldest son to prevent him from becoming a Roman Catholic. Calas was found guilty and executed for breaking the wheel. Voltaire, in his late 60s by this time, spearheaded a fervent campaign, resulting in a revision of the trial. It was determined that the son had committed suicide, and the Parisian Parliament declared Calas innocent in 1765. Voltaire finally returned to Paris in 1778, 28 years after leaving. He had become a beloved national celebrity, and it's believed that the frenzied excitement of such adoration from the French people aggravated his precarious health. Reportedly, more than 300 people called on him the day after his arrival. He died a painful death on May 30 of uremia, only a few months after his celebrated arrival, at age 83. His nephew, Abbé Mignot, had his body, clothed as it was the day he died, quickly transported to the Abbey of Scellières, where Voltaire was given a Christian burial. The prohibition of such a burial came after the ceremony. Because of his lifelong criticism of the Church, Voltaire was denied burial on church grounds. He was finally buried at an abbey in Champagne. His heart was removed from his body and now lays in the Bibliothèque Nationale in Paris. His brain was also removed, but after a series of moves during the next 100 years, it disappeared following an auction. Voltaire's remains were moved to the Panthéon in Paris during the Revolution in July 1791. In 1814, a group of right-wing religious ultras stole Voltaire's remains from his enormous sarcophagus and dumped them in a garbage heap. The theft went undetected for about 50 years.